Hello everyone, my name is Cesar Cordero, co-founder of Luna Nueva Apothecaries and Luna Nueva Farms, the current community herbalist student at the school. And today I would like to talk about comfrey and the many ways that it can be used in the garden. Now, a lot of us know about comfrey and its medicinal properties, common names such as bone set. So let's begin. So actually, you know what? Before we begin, I'd like to show you an example of comfrey. And comfrey, something that I've learned throughout the years. This is a comfrey right here. Comfrey. I like to plant them around my fruit trees. This is a comfrey. It's already split, so I can get a couple plants out of this and a little banana. So here's an example of how resilient comfrey is. We moved here in August. This was a big comfrey plant, and I literally just dug it out of the ground with a shovel, threw it in the pot to transport it, and it's been sitting here for what, 7-8 months now. Never watered it, never did anything. All the leaves died off during the freezes, and with a little bit of rain that we've had in the last month, it actually grew back up, and now it's dying back. The roots are tuberous, so that they hold a lot of moisture, they store a lot of nutrients, and they're pretty resilient. So the root's really what I need, because eventually I want to get a patch going. Alright, so comfrey. It's an herbaceous perennial. The name is Symphytum officinalis. That is the herb that most herbalists use. It is a natural form. Okay, but what I really want to focus on today is it's a hybrid called Bocking 14, which is a combination of the Symphytum officinalis and Symphytum asperum. It is a naturally occurring hybrid. It is sterile, so the only way to proliferate it really is through the roots. And how you do that is you basically just, nice big comfrey plant, take a shovel, cut it in half, pull the half out, and then separate all the root pieces, and then each one of those root pieces can give you a whole nother plant. So with a little bit of time and effort, you could definitely grow a lot of comfrey pretty quickly. All right, so okay, so let's talk about its natural properties. Okay, why comfrey? Anybody who does gardening, it's especially in the permaculture type community, comfrey's considered almost like a miracle plant. So the reason that it is because of the amount of plant material that you can extract from it throughout the year. Okay, so when you talk about the NPK scale, which its NPK is approximately, give or take, depending on what study you look into, it's about 315. So it's pretty high in nitrogen, high in potassium, which makes excellent fertilizer. So why comfrey versus other plants? So you have red clovers and alfalfas that can do a lot of benefits in the garden. Now the problem with that is that you pretty much have to plant your entire garden to be able to, kind of like a cover crop, to be able to get the benefits from that. Now with comfrey, with one plant, you could do the work of a cover crop on a relatively small area. So you can actually harvest all the leaves and get flowers in between about 4 to 5 times a year. So the leaves get pretty big, 18 inches, 2 feet, depending on sun and whatnot. But it's a lot of green plant material. Another good benefit to it is that it breaks down very quickly. It's high in potash, which is excellent, especially here in Florida. Excuse me. So Okay, so now let's get into some of the uses of comfrey. Okay, now one of the first ways I really started using comfrey in the garden was as a transplant shock resistor. I don't know if that's the real world, but basically whenever you're planting something from one pot to another or from a pot into the ground, anybody who's done any kind of planting knows that, you know, the plant will go through some form of shock. So what you do if you're putting it in the ground, you dig a hole out, you put 2 or 3 leaves down in there, and then you put your plant in and fill it up with soil. Now, because comfrey breaks down so quickly, it's pretty much almost kind of like an instant release fertilizer for the roots. So it really helps when transplanting. It gives the plant the vital nutrients that it needs to be able to establish itself in its new location or new pot, whatever the case may be. So another use that I haven't actually tried yet, but in my research I found, is it's a soil miner. So if you have an area of your property that's really gunked up with clay, or it's like really hard packed, and you know it's just something that you could never really use, then you know with a little bit of planting you could plant comfrey throughout. The roots go very deep. Most estimates say between 6 to 8 feet deep, so they get pretty deep in there, and the roots, being that they're very tuberous and thick, they'll actually bust up, you know, your clays and your hard pans and whatnot, and at the same time increase the NPK value within the soil. So it's a win-win. Now that's something that would happen over the course, you know, of a year or two, but you know, with proper planning and everything, it could definitely be a beneficial use inside your garden. Okay, so probably one of the most common uses that you hear, especially in permaculture world, is the chop and drop method. Basically what that means is you chop the leaves off, you place it around the base of a plant, and it acts as a mulch, but it also, again, because it breaks down so quickly, it releases many nutrients down into the soil that your plants can utilize. Now you could do this in just using straight comfrey leaves, or you could do like a layer method, you know, like maybe throw some comfrey leaves in there, you know, every month or two, and then use like grass clippings or straw or mulch or whatever it is that you prefer using in your garden. Excuse me. So now we get to, okay, it can be used as a compost accelerator. So in my composting experience, one of the issues I've found is that like once everything dries out, it becomes very high carbon level. And when the carbon and the nitrogen are out of whack, you get one of two things. If your nitrogen is high, it'll start to stink and putrefy, almost like rotten fruit. Now, if your carbon's too high, and then it cools down, and it doesn't do what compost needs to do to break down. So it basically stagnates and slows down the composting process. So what you can do, there's different ways to use it as a compost accelerator. You could layer it into your compost, you know, a layer of what you have or dry stuff. Put a layer of comfrey leaves, dry, you know, like a lasagna, you know, many layers, and let it do its thing. Another way that you could use it to activate is you could make like a short soaking compost tea almost, and then just pour the liquid plus the macerated leaves and whatnot directly into your pile to help activate it and get that process going. So now we get to Comfrey Tea. Comfrey Tea is a form of natural fertilizer. There's different ways to do it, ranging from long steeping methods to quick quick methods, I guess really depending on what you have on hand and how quickly your garden needs those nutrients. So we'll start with the long one. You get a 5-gallon bucket, put some fresh leaves in there, cut them up, macerate them some. You can put them in a blender, and then cover them up with water. Make sure you cover them up completely. Pop a lid on it, let it sit 4 to 6 weeks. Basically, it just breaks down and rots. Gets real stinky, but that's something that you can apply pretty much directly to your garden as a fertilizer to your potted plants. Again, as a fertilizer. There's also a form of concentrate that you can make without using any water. You get a bucket of some sort, a container, and then you put a bunch of fresh leaves in there, and then you weigh it down with something heavy so it's like compacted at the bottom. Again, no water. And then 4 to 6 weeks, you would have like a sludgy slurry. So what you would do is you could, pop a little hole in the bottom of the bucket, maybe put a screen on the inside before you start the process so that it doesn't get gunked up, and then have a container underneath where you can collect this concentrate. This concentrate, it's so potent, like you'd basically want to water it down like maybe 1 to 10, 1 to 15. So it's pretty potent. It's not something you'd want to put directly on your plants, and if storage becomes an issue, this is a good way to store some good fertilizer without taking up that much space. So there is a quick method. So the quick method you could do, which I think would be more beneficial. I haven't actually tried it yet, but I think I can see it being more beneficial, like in the winter times, like if you're getting ready if you want to do something for your plants before spring comes and everything starts growing, just to give it a little bit of a head start. And that's where you'd get dried comfrey leaf. You just get the dried herb, and then you put some boiling water on it. You basically do like a long infusion. You pour the boiling water on it, you let it cool down for a few minutes, and then cover it and let it steep for at least 4 hours. Once it's completely cooled, you can put that directly on your garden, directly on your plants. It's gonna be good. You'll definitely see a difference, and that's something that you could accomplish in a day. You go out in the morning, you see something you don't like, you need immediate action, don't have anything else on hand. This could be a really good option. So, as we go on. Okay, with this Comfrey Tea, you can use it as a foliar spray. Now, this is something where you would take the tea that you were undiluting to put directly on the soil. You'd want to dilute it some, but it's something that you can put in a little pump sprayer or any kind of sprayer, depending on what kind of an area you're covering. Could be just like a little hand sprayer, and you would spray directly on the leaves. Now, the soft green tissues on plants can and will absorb nutrients through leaves and non-woody stems. So this is another way that you can get nutrients into your plant. So comfrey can also be used as a soil amendment. Soil amendment, something you add to the soil to make it better. Okay, so it's pretty self-explanatory, but there are different ways to do it. If you're going to use fresh leaves, probably one of the easiest ways is you just basically cut back, some comfrey leaves, let them sit and kind of wilt for a little bit. You'll see the leaves will curl up. Let them wilt for a little bit, then chop them up, and then right around your plants, literally just dig out and kind of incorporate them in the soil directly around your plant. And the comfrey leaf will start breaking down very quickly, and it'll give a boost. Another way that you could use it as a soil amendment is if you dry and powder the leaves. Again, this is something I've never tried, but I believe would be good in the wintertime when fresh leaves aren't really readily available. And what you do is you take that powder, and whenever you're prepping your garden area, whether you're getting your soil ready, and whichever method you prefer, and then you literally just broadcast the powder directly on top of the soil and work it into the soil. Now, being that the particles are so small, it's almost instantly amending the soil. So it's quick. It's something that you don't want to overuse, because it's pretty potent when it's like that, because it's like one quick shot, it all breaks down and boom, it's a quick injection. Where like the other method with the leaves, the wilted leaves, that's kind of more of like a time release. Hold on, I gotta turn the page. Okay, not quite yet, but so another excellent use for comfrey in your garden is something that really doesn't have anything to do with nutrients or fertilizer or compost. It's an excellent bug attractor. Okay, it attracts many of the predators that will kill the pests that tend to destroy your garden and eat your leaves. So it creates a habitat for them to live in, and it attracts them. Also, when done properly, you could get comfrey to flower 4 or 5 times a year. So it's good to have those pollinators coming around. Pretty much here down in Florida, it's pretty much almost year round. There's only a few months that, stuff doesn't really grow down here. It's one of the benefits of being here. But so you have your pollinators, you put it next to your garden, next to your flowering fruit trees. So, while the bugs are there for the comfrey, because your comfrey's always there, they'll, pollinate the rest of whatever it is you're growing. Okay. Also, as far as the pests are concerned, those are not the pests, the predators. It's a good idea to it's a good idea not to harvest your final growth of comfrey for the year. And it actually creates like a living habitat for these beneficial insects to winter. So instead of them having to go somewhere and then try to come back in the spring when you really need them, they'll already be there. So the more comfrey you have, the more habitat you have, the more of those beneficial insects you will have when you start back up the next year. So there's one thing I found in my research I found very interesting. Now, we all know, comfrey's used in a lot of salves. It's used topically in many ways, to help different types of injuries, stings, and whatnot. So the chemical in it is called allantoin. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct. Allantoin. But what this does is it promotes cell proliferation, which means it causes the cells to grow faster and repair themselves faster and replace themselves faster. So it's like kind of speeds up the healing process. Just like on our skins, where you get that effect with the salves and whatnot, you can also use it on trees that have had bark damage from pests or accidents. Stuff falls all the time, you just never know. But if there's a tree, like especially with fruit trees, something you're trying to grow for food, and the bark's all damaged, the bottom foot or two of the plant that has no bark, that plant will probably get sick and die. So much just like you would do on a human, make a poultice, you plaster it on there, wrap it up, and the tree will actually grow back its bark and get back to health pretty quickly, which is much better than just letting it die. So, in conclusion, I have been using Comfrey in its many beneficial uses as far as gardening. Gardening's really where I would say it's one of my passions. You know, I love to watch things grow, and to be able to use Comfrey, which is also considered a green manure, instead of having to use any kind of fertilizers or pesticides. Because that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that plants have immune systems just like humans do. So what happens when we're not healthy and we're not eating the proper foods, we're not giving ourselves the right vitamins, if we're really not taking care of ourselves, our immune systems go way down, which makes us more susceptible to, you know, bacteria, viruses, illness of any and all kinds, cancers, all kinds of stuff. Well, plants are very much the same. So if you have a plant and you're starving your plant, its immune system's going down. That pests are almost like nature's way of eliminating the weak. You could have two plants, two of the same plant, right next to each other, and feed one and have it look healthy and just let the other one sit there and get sickly. And the one that's sickly will get the pests, it'll get the aphids, it'll get all the bad stuff that happens, because the healthy plant, it's almost like it's invisible. Its immune system is so strong, and the plant is so strong that why would nature want to eliminate that, you know? So, it's very important to feed your garden, and Comfrey is one good way to do that. The amount of biomass that you can get from a good Comfrey patch will be more than plenty to feed your plants for the year. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.